We're going to be handing over and switching over right now into to our moderator, Sister Rashan Dawkins. I call her the effervescent Rashan Dawkins, the multifaceted, multi-potentialite woman of God that I have so admired. And so I believe a discussion like this needs her touch. And I know through the anointing of the Holy Spirit, you will ably guide the discussion tonight. So, Sister Rashan, I'm going to hand over to you as you introduce the panelists and begin our discussion tonight. God bless you, everybody.
All right. Good night, everyone. Let me know if it is that you're hearing me clearly.
Loud and clear.
All right. So, as was mentioned, my name is Rashan Dawkins. And as you can see, we do have some co-hosts tonight, which is our panelists. And we do have Prophetess Sandra Jordan. You can just, welcome her in the chat. We have Elder Leron Palmer. We have Dr. Patterson, and we have Elder Rohan Dawkins. All right, so just welcome. And tonight, we'll be dealing with various areas in terms of, just being intentional while and just taking dominion of that. All right, so the first thing that we would like to get to, I need two persons to turn on their mic. So the theme tonight says being intentional while single, take dominion. So I just need two persons to just tell me, what do you think? Like when you hear this theme, what does it mean to you? All right, just two persons, any two person. Ruth, are they able to, or they would have to like raise their hands?
They would have to raise their hands and I will unmute them. I'm
All
not too
right,
sure
so
that
I
they
need two
can.
persons to raise their hands really quick. And if it is that you don't raise your hands, I'll just call on you. So you just volunteer thyself. All right, so I see one hand up. Angie, you may go ahead.
And good night, everyone. Be intentional about whatever you are going to do. So, whatever is going to be, we're going to talk about tonight, we have to be intentional about it and open in every area of our life.
All right, so just a question, Angie. When how does that speak to you personally in terms of being intentional while you're single?
Be intentional while I am single. Okay, I think to know whatsoever I want as a single person, I have to be intentional. This is what I want. This is the character of the man that I really looking forward to, and stuff like that.
All right, thank you, Angie. I'm seeing Sophia Terrelong. Go ahead, missionary.
Greetings. So for me, being intentional means having a plan. And of course, that plan is set in motion primarily by the instructions of the Lord and executing that plan, which just means living on purpose, living a purpose-driven life as directed by God's Holy Spirit. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy to live out your purpose because the world will tell you, no, you're not good enough, or oh, you're alone, and all of the different excuses that the world will try to throw at you and make you think that that's your ideas. But it's to be steadfast in the Lord and to know that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us and move forward in our purpose.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you for the two persons who actually spoke tonight. And, as we go through the course of the night, I want persons just to kind of open up your mind. One of the things that I want us to leave with from tonight is when it is that we think about being intentional and taking dominion, what are various aspects of our lives? As I mentioned before, the panelists will cover various areas. So it's not just about finding a man, it's while you're single, what can you do to occupy your time? But with no further ado, we will go right into it. And the first person that we'll actually be hearing from is none other than Prophetess Sandra Jordan. Our topic for tonight is after loss. So what does it look like to have life after you've had a loss, whether it is divorce or death? All right. First questions, you may come on, Prophetess. So one of the first questions that I have for Lady
So,
Jordan.
like you.
How do you manage grief and loneliness after your spouse has transitioned?
Bless the Lord, everyone. I just want to greet each and every one. Bishop C. Everett and Thomas in his absence, Ella Palmer, Evangelist Ruth. All protocol is observed tonight. And the question that you're asking me, how to manage grief and loneliness after a spouse transition.
Right.
Okay. For example, first and most, you have to accept the loss. It is important that you accept the loss by acknowledge, because when you are grieving the loss of a partner, a spouse, you have to come to the place where you accept it, because if you don't accept it first, you cannot move along. So the first important thing is to accept the loss and then move on from accepting the loss. You have to grieve. You have to give yourself time to grieve. You must grieve, and you have to give yourself time to grieve, because you have to know how to manage the grief, and you have to give yourself time to grieve, because it's important that you give yourself time to grieve. And also, while you are grieving, you have to identify previous eras in your life. As you grieve and as you go through this process, you have to seek support. For example, some people seek support by going to a therapist. It depends on how you manage the grief. It depends on how you navigate the grief, because some people deal with grief different. Some people go to a therapist, some people don't go. Okay, for example, I can give example of myself. When I lose my husband, I went to a therapist, but the truth is, it didn't help me. It didn't help me. So some people deal with the grief differently from others. And some people, you have to give them time, because it's important that you give the person time and space also to grieve. And the next thing, talking about loneliness, it's also becoming it is gonna becoming active in your life, because now you lose your partner. So you're gonna have to deal with all of that, the loneliness. But there's all things that you have to find ways, to deal with it. You cannot be all by yourself. You have to find ways to deal with it. You have to make sure that you connect yourself to people, because if sometimes grief can put you into a place where you withdraw and go by yourself, and that would not help you much. So you have to find ways also to deal with the loneliness by connecting to yourself to people, person that have the same experience, person that have the same experience. You have to connect yourself with people that understand, because somebody won't understand what you are going through when you lost a spouse, unless they have been there, unless they have been in a position and they can say, well, I understand. So that's the only way sometimes you get result, because and get some sort of comfort, because I can say, yes, I understand what you are going through, sister. You understand to a point, but you have never been there. But a person that have been there in the shoes and have that experience will add more value to them, because they can tell them based off their experience that they have gone through it. So that also help them as a support.
All right. So yes, I can what it is. I mean, clearly, I've not been through it. But in terms of just the various stages of grief, I can definitely agree that these are some of the steps that you need to take. One of the things, though, that you said, Lady Jordan, you say you have to connect with like-minded people. Now, oftentimes we've heard before that misery love company, right? So, in some cases, when it is that persons of like mind connect, it's not necessarily necessarily be beneficial. So what are some of the points you can give in terms of persons that you can connect with that may not necessarily keep you in that position that you are in?
Okay, for example, you have to connect with person that positive, positive, because sometimes you can connect to the wrong person that's always giving you negative examples. You have to connect to your person that is positive, because sometimes when you are grieving, person will say things to you that will make the matters worse,
Right,
because they're saying negative things. For example, somebody is grieving. You don't tell a person, say, they don't, sometimes the thing that you say, they don't want to hear it. It's not
right,
time for it. They don't want it. Okay, they're at a better place. You don't want to hear that. You know, yes, they're at a better place, but you're saying at the wrong place at the wrong time. They don't want to hear that he's at a better place, she's at a better place. Or, you have to be try to be strong. You have to choose what you said to person when they are grieving. And sometimes person can come around you and the things that they said, not intentionally that they want to say, but sometimes the way they say it can show off
right.
the person more and put them in a deeper depression and deeper and a worse state that they are in, because you're not building them that way. So you have to choose your words wisely, choose what you said, and be around positive people, because sometimes people are grieving and person come around them asking them a lot of questions that don't necessary. It is not needed at the time. You don't want no questioning. People questioning about how that happened and questioning what take place. You don't want to hear that. You just don't want to hear that. So
Mhm.
you have to keep the person that will help to build your faith. You have to stay around person that will encourage you and say, you can make it. I am with you. I don't understand what you are going through, but I am here for you. I'm here for you. I will pray
Mhm.
with you and I will stand with you. You have to say positive things to help build their faith, because at that time persons are in pain, grieving the loss of a loved one. They are in a devastated place, mighty God, and they are also feeling the pain, and there's that void that they are going through. So they don't want to know that you are saying negative things. They want positive things. So it's best that you always said positive things around the person.
All
Choose
right,
your word wisely.
all right, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And you somewhat answered one of the questions that I had, which is what does rebuilding look like without a spouse? Where I think you spoke to finding things with your time. So it's not just to sit down and to just, I mean, take the time to grieve, but not just that. When it is that you would have passed a certain stage to actually now find things that you can do to actually just to get busy with your time. And so one of the other questions that I have for you, but before you answer, I'm just going to, a bit of a discussion. But the question that I have for you is, how do you find joy in life after loss? So you can just think about that while I just say what
Okay.
I'm about to say. So, for the persons online, one of the things that I want us to be conscious of, just after hearing all of Lady Jordan just said, one of the things she said is to accept loss. Oftentimes, and this may not be even just a spouse, but overall, that you have a bad experience with any sort of loss, oftentimes we tend to just hold on to it and we tend to burden ourselves with it. And it's not easy to get over anything of this nature. It doesn't matter that it would have happened. But one other thing, you have to accept it, because at the end of the day, the point of the matter is that what has happened has already happened. That's the first thing, and that's just the truth. What has happened has already happened. So it's now to move to a place of how do I actually deal what has actually happened, right? And one of those things that she mentioned is to take time to grieve. You have to take the time to actually not even counteract, but to face what you're actually going through. All right. Matter of fact, Sister Jordan, just hold on to that. Actually going to go to Elder Leron. So we're going to talk a bit about finances right now. All right. So that's his topic. So, Elder Leron, what should singles know about debt management? But before you answer that, what are some of the ways in which you can actually deal with the debt that you have?
Debt, right?
Yes,
DEBT.
right.
Just want to make sure we're transitioning from conversation we just had a while ago. Excellent, I must say, excellent, Lady Jordan. And what you didn't tell the people is that Sir Jordan would have been um, husband of all of your youth, all of from 18 years old. So, that would
Right.
have been difficult and so on. So greetings everyone. Happy to be here and to be sharing as well. Greetings to, of course, the President, Madam President, Lady Ruth, and all the committee members and panelists, of course, Lady Celia and Sir Jordan, Sister Jordan and Sir Dawkins. So, so that, um, I guess Lady Rashan is jumping to whether or not, you have debt and how you deal with that, right? So, my general thing is that debt is not good, but it can be. Um, so first of all, debt
Wait,
is
wait, wait, wait. Can you explain that? What do you mean it can be?
can be debt can be one of the greatest things that you use. Most people who are consider themselves wealthy, they tell you that they don't use their own money, they use other person's money
Right.
to finance all of what they want. But my general feeling around debt is that you should be very careful and we're using the word intentional, right? Intentional
Mm-hmm.
about debt. So let me start with the question that you asked and then we work it backwards, right? So in case you have debt now, so let me use myself as an example. I started out when I was going to university at the West Indies. Some persons may have had the option of getting a scholarship. Also, I had no option. That was student loan. I never really planned to go to college. All I wanted to do is to stay in the country, plant some yam, get a bank work, and life would be fine, right? Certainly you wouldn't have known me. But it didn't work out that way. Life happened, and after graduating community college, I feel like I do want to do something else, right? So I ended up at the University of the West Indies, and figuring out all of that along the way with debt. So I started with student loan. I started working in 2006. You can age me and check the date. Um, but when I started, I'd have this debt over my head. And student loan, for anybody who knew back in those time, it's not reducing debt. So all of the interest that you owe on that loan, if you carry out the loan through the life, it doesn't matter what the balance is, the interest will always remain the same. That is also something dangerous. So I decided that I'm going to pay off my student loan. I borrowed a loan from my company that I was working at the time. The loan that I was getting from my company was like 3 point something percent. The loan that I had with student loan was probably closer to 10, 11%. So obviously I'm swapping a cheaper debt. You can do that. Debt, like anything else, is a service, is a product. You can always get a better product elsewhere, right? So if you have an existing debt, you can get a better debt somewhere. So for anybody who would have borrowed from a place called Access, AIM Financials, one of those. All of those people, they are loan sharks. What do I mean? You are paying debt of 50%, 55%, similar to your credit card, by the way. In case some of you don't know, your credit card is at least 45%.
Mm-hmm.
How much does the bank give you on your money? Depending on how much money you have. You'll be lucky if you get 1%, right? So right away, you're giving the bank way more money than you're getting from them. That shouldn't be, right? So I swapped my higher percent debt, interest debt, for a lower one. And I was able to pay off my student loan within 2 years. right? While I still think some of my colleagues who I finished school with them in 2006 still have student loan, right? So you have to be smart about it. For persons who, for instance, if you've taken a loan to purchase your bed, your refrigerator, your washing machine, your TV, and what do I mean a loan? When you go to courts, those are all higher purchase loans, meaning they're charging you 50% for the to give you this good to go out. They're already, giving you a markup. Plus, they're making more money off giving you this loan to purchase the furniture than they're making from the furniture selling itself, right? So if you have any of those debts, or if you've borrowed any money from a loan shark, I'd advise you to find somewhere else that gives you a cheaper rate. So for persons who are, I tell anybody who I know, join a credit union. The purpose of the credit union is supposed to be more friendly. It's not supposed to operate like a bank. It's not supposed to pressure you, right? I'll give you another name. I'm selling people's product here, but I've advised people and they have benefited. A place like JN, who goes out of their way to cater to small business owners and people who, like, for instance, taxi operators, less formal, but they'll give you more affordable loans, right? I remember somebody told me that they want to purchase a car and they were telling me they had a payment like 70 something thousand dollars every 2 weeks, something like that for the car. I said, "What? Are you crazy?" I said, "Go over to this particular place." The loan payment for the month turned out to be like 20 something thousand dollars, right? So huge saving. The person was able to buy another car within 2 years. Some crazy thing like that. They probably would have still been paying it for it now. So you have to be very deliberate, intentional about what you want to do. Debt, as I said, can be something that is very useful. Most of us who purchase a house, we get mortgages. Most of us who purchase cars, that's what we use to fund it. There are other people who want to make an investment. For instance, I have an investment, for instance. Let me use an example that is 11%. I'm getting the loan borrowed for 3%. I'm taking that loan and I'm putting it on that investment, and I'm getting more from that loan than, if I didn't invest my money, right? So there are ways of doing it. If you have existing loan, um, a lot of people do consolidation. If you have loans here, there, and everywhere, you have to be very careful, because if you miss the payment, it's gonna mess up your credit, and it's gonna limit your option to actually do what you really want to do later in life. So if you want to buy a house, some people say they don't want a spouse who have bad credit, right? So you don't want to disqualify yourself, right? So you have to be very careful. That's also a consideration in the dating game nowadays, whether or not you can qualify for NHT,
Qualify.
or yeah, you qualify, you can help me buy a house, right? So yeah, so but as I said, that is, can be a good or can be a bad thing. But I'll leave it there based on your question.
Well, no, you actually touched on one thing that I had on my paper here, which is consolidated loans. So,
Mhm.
what someone out there who may just hear not necessarily know what that means. What is a consolidated loan and
So
how it may be useful in debt management?
yeah, so if you, depending on your age and stage in life and how you manage money, or how you just your limited experience with money, there are so many times, and I'm gonna speak very frank, right? There are so many times when I remember somebody calling me one day and said, "Everyone, a, a I just got an email that said I can borrow up to $1 million and I can pay." I was praying about something, and the Lord, look at the Lord, send this to me. I think I'm gonna get it. So I said, "What are you gonna use the money to do?" "I'm gonna start a business." I said, "What type of business?" They tell me the business. I'm not gonna say the business idea. So I say, "Have you checked out the feasibility of this business? Where are you gonna do it? Is it gonna work? Have you checked anything?" "No, but I think this is the Lord speaking to me." And I guess because we're in church, I can say it, right? The truth is, companies, once they have your email, they're gonna do marketing. They're gonna send this out to enough people. And if another God tell us, yeah, nobody, God send you, the people in the market, right? So you don't want to put yourself in debt. Go borrow this money, and then you don't know what to do at the end of the day. So you can have many loans, right? Because people are always marketing and they're always encouraging you to come and borrow because that's how they get fed, right? They have people, all they do is get up every day and they try to find people who they can give loans. So yes, you're gonna get a loan if you qualify. So you end up with 5 loans. What you want to do, first of all, it's hard to manage. Some of it comes out of your salary, right? And you may look at your payslip and after then take out all of them payment, you don't have no money left, right? And some of those may be because somebody told you about a place over there. So you don't even know that you don't even think about the interest rate that you're paying, right? So for an unsecured loan, that's a lot of persons have, an unsecured loan can be as low as 20%, but it can be in the 50s or 40s, right? Which you probably didn't pay any attention to. However, if for instance you have now wised up and everyone tell us say you can have a credit union account and you go to the credit union says you can get the same loan for 15%, right? And you say, all right, I have 500,000 over there. I want to consolidate. I want to bring all of these loans into one loan, right? And you tell them. And so they give you the money. And when they give you money, please pay it off. Because people take the money and eat it. When you get the money, you pay off all of those, or they may send it to the bank directly. You pay off all of those, and you just end up owing one person now instead of five. Right? So that's a consolidated position. A lot of persons do it, and you just need discipline. So when you have this now, instead of 5 different payments, you only have one, and you can manage that a bit more. And it helps. And it can be at a lower interest rate, so it means that you have more money to spend, more disposable income at the end of the day.
All right, thank you, thank you so much, Ella Leroon. Thank you, and I hope that we're learning tonight. If it is that we never knew this information. All right, so the next question to is none other than Dr. Celia Patterson, and her topic for tonight is physical and mental health. All right, so Cecilia, just explain to us what is mental health and why it is that it's important. And one of the things that I want you to actually speak on as well, I mean, you don't have to lay out all the mental health that is out there, but I know oftentimes persons, when we think about mental health, we only think about, for instance, depression and bipolar, but there is so much out there. And as such, sometimes when persons are even, I guess, trying to be empathetic to these persons, depending on what our view is of mental health, be so understanding. Because we as a boy, them just go through and look at something, them can just go pray and, but sometimes we don't understand that it's actually deeper than what we think. So you can open your mic and just answer what is mental health. You can speak to some other types of mental health. Why is it important? And yeah, we move on from there.
All right, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we are.
All right, let me just say that I am feeling quite privileged to be here tonight. Of course, to be among all these great people, my co-panelists. Thanks to Evangelist Ruth and the entire singles department, of course, for inviting me tonight. All right, mental health, a very big topic. Mental health is something that we see being mentioned a lot these days, especially in social media. And I'm very grateful for the attention and for the light that is being shed over there on mental health, because the reality is that it affects many of us. We see it, we also experience it. And of course, many of us don't really understand what it is or how to deal with it. It's a big taboo area because it's an uncomfortable space. But just want to make a clear distinction that mental health is something that's different from mental health disorders. So mental health simply speaks about how well you are in your mind, in your thoughts, in your emotions, how well you are able to interact in terms of on a social level, right? And your mental health is something that is very dynamic. It doesn't stay the same throughout the day. It doesn't stay the same day by day, as well as it can, right? And there are a number of things that can affect your mental health. Your mental health can be affected by one, life's experiences. We all have different life's experiences. As a matter of fact, you can grow up in the same home with the same exposure.
Mm-hmm.
What experience would impact you different and also impact how you process what you went through and also impact your mental health, even though you're from the same experience, the same home, right? Also your resilience, what that which is built inside of you to allow you to bounce back whenever you experience changes, loss. You know, Prophetess Jordan mentioned earlier about dealing with loss, right? So those are all things that affect your mental health. Your genetics, mental health can also be affected by just something existing in your family, right? And it's not say that it's a must that you, if you have mental health illness in your family, it's a must that you will experience it. But there are some persons, they are at a higher risk just because of the fact that there was a history in the family. Now, mental health disorders, now, that's the one that we label the depression, the schizophrenia, the anxiety disorders, the bipolar, those are mental health disorders, right? And those are the big ones that everybody see. And those are obvious when people start behaving different, people hallucinate, they see things, they hear things. You see an obvious change in their behavior. And the big issue or the big red flag with mental health disorders is that it usually affects someone's ability to function normally, right? But the reality is that many persons are walking about with a very bad state of mental health. It may not be as loud as being boisterous and being obviously depressed, but it comes out in how we interact with people. It comes out in our relationships. It comes out with how we make decisions. It comes out in our choices, the fact that we don't sleep well, the fact that we don't eat well, the fact that we cannot build relationships that last, the fact that we carry hurt and along with us for years and years. And then we find ourselves in cycles. And then we pray about these things because it also affects our ability to function. It affects your ability to identify purpose and to pursue purpose. It affects everything, right? And so a lot of persons carry these things along. And of course, we pray about it because it becomes a stronghold in our lives, or we blame other people because other people are the reason why we always end up in a quarrel and a cuss out. Other persons are the reason why you can't maintain a job. Other persons would be the reason why I am offended because somebody said this, not recognizing that we are the ones who have internal struggles and we are carrying along things that we're finding. One, we don't recognize that it's there and it's lingering, and we also don't recognize that these things are creating a negative impact in our life. So mental health, having good mental health then becomes very important in terms of being able to function properly. It's important for us to be productive on the job, because when your mind is distracted, when your thoughts are not clear, it affects your decision making skills, it affects your ability to focus, right? And then you find that you're failing at work and you're wondering why, and then you say it's a devil after you and it's a war after you, not recognizing that it is because you are not healed and your mind is not well, and it is affecting how you function at work, right? Um, Mental health is also important, even in ministry, right? Um, your self esteem is also a part of mental health, how we view ourselves. And so sometimes those are the things that hinder us. So we don't go forward and do the things that we ought to do. We're not as effective because we compare ourselves and we put ourselves in a little box. And these things affect how much impact and how much influence we can have in this season that we're talking about taking dominion and having influence. These are things that we ought to pay attention to and recognize that they do affect us. I'm going to stop there.
All right. Thank you, Celia. And you did touch on some great topics. One of them being the fact that sometimes our mental health actually affect the way how we interact with each other. So not maybe let's put the disorder aside right now, right? And just speak to even just because as I said before, sometimes when people say mental health, they might say, oh, I'm not depressed and all of these things, but sometimes it's just your day-to-day operation and what does that why it is that you operate the way that you operate and why it is that you actually react to when someone says a certain thing to you. One of the things growing up that my father used to say is that when it is that you have a cut, and I'm sure all of you have gotten a cut before, right? If you're supposed to just probably just put a band-aid over it and move on. Maybe it's a simple cut on your hand here. Nothing touch it at all or anything. Something here. But if you should ever, for instance, hit up your hand on a door or a wall or something, it hurts. You remember immediately. And so that is the thing. Sometimes we have some sores, quote unquote, some scars in our life that we haven't necessarily gotten rid of. And as such, when someone speaks to you a certain way or says certain thing, for instance, if I had a father that used to talk down to me, and somebody's talking and it give me even a slight inclination that you're talking down to me, all of a sudden I'm aggressive. I mean, I have to deal with it. I'm like, me a big woman now, and yeah. So sometimes we don't deal with things the right way because we have internal struggles that we have not yet addressed. Right. So one of the things before I even should move on that I want us to talk about is
You just got a piece of the offering, Russia. So the offering. Yeah.
right.
So before you move though, I want to ask the doc, right? Because we're in church, right? Let's remember we are Christian people.
Right.
I find that because under the Spirit and we are spiritual people, a lot of what is we can now deem mental health disorder of some form is hidden. Meaning somebody acts strange, but because they're in church or they're Christians, the strangeness is almost allowed and it goes for extended period, right? And we don't one recognize it, we don't acknowledge it, even from bystanders or persons who are looking on. Can we do we need trained people in the space to assist, and how can we guide somebody who is probably acting a bit different? Sorry, moderator.
No, man, you can go ahead. You can go ahead, Celia.
That's a very relevant question, right? It happens all the time, and we misinterpret um, mental illness as somebody who is spirited and deep sometimes. Sometimes it's difficult to make the clear distinction, especially I think when things are early, when the signs are subtle. Sometimes it's very difficult. But one of the things that will always stand out when it comes to mental illness is that the behavior is always out of keeping with what is expected in that moment, right? And sometimes you find that people become disruptive, and when the reaction is out of keeping with what is happening, right? So it may be an exaggerated somebody come and offend them, right? And they jump up and they start rebuke because, of course, it's going to be camouflage as I'm in the spirit. And they jump up and they're rebuking. But what triggered that rebuke? You know, obviously, that that is not necessary. And that is definitely not the Holy Ghost working. So, those are some of the subtle ways that mental disorder may show itself up. Another way is, you know, God speaks to everybody different, and the Lord will lead people to do things differently. But what I observe is when people start going on long fasts and they start withdrawing themselves away from people because they are so deep and so in tune with God and that they want to be distracted. We have to be very careful with those things because social withdrawal is also a red flag, right? And I
But
have
Celia,
seen the
I want to cut you a bit because oftentimes, I don't know who has heard it before, but I've heard it. That, when it is that God is a deeper level, sometimes in putting a space by yourself. And so,
which is
could
why I'm
that be the
saying
case?
that, which is why I'm saying that which is why I started out by saying that the Lord speaks to people in different ways. So I'm not denying that there isn't a time when you have to go in your closet and lock up with the Lord. I'm not denying that. But I'm saying that the red flag is when it becomes extreme.
Okay.
Right? When it becomes extreme, those are the things that you look for. As I said, sometimes it's very difficult to make the clear distinction when it comes to operating in church and in the spirit and identifying these persons. But the interaction, the normal interaction with people will always be compromised. There will always be a red flag when it comes to the interaction and withdrawing themselves, right? And so identifying these persons, a lot of time it's difficult to even express to somebody like this that you think something is wrong. They will rebuke you sharply and say that you're of the devil. So it's a very difficult situation to handle, right? Um, and so the reality is that if you approach someone and someone is not willing to accept your help, that person is difficult to reach them. But if you approach someone and they're willing to accept the help, then in terms of getting help, then they're going to have to go to the professionals. They have to be seen by a doctor to be able to be evaluated. Because the reality is that a layman will not be able to have the eyes or the perception to say that this is um, a mental health disorder that is manifesting itself. There has to be professional intervention at that point in time, right? Sometimes we can speak to family members and say, hey, I've noticed that I've seen this, and I think that there's something going on. And at least to have family members or close friends introduce it and even to go with that person to seek help so that at least you're not saying don't stop from seeking God and don't stop from operating in the spirit. But we're saying at the same time, let us also make sure that nothing else is happening at the same time. I think that is probably the safest approach I can suggest because, as I said, it's a very delicate situation. And sometimes you do not want to offend anybody, right? And yeah, that's a very sticky situation.
All right. So I know this wasn't necessarily on Elder Rowan Dawkins' list, but I would just like to drop it in there based on the mental health right now and trauma and all of these things. So his area is really spiritual growth, but I'd just like to give this question to him based on what we would have heard just now and the mental health and interaction with persons. What is just some pointers that you can give to us as single persons in of how do we deal with trauma And trauma doesn't necessarily have to mean boy our father did a box we down. But maybe every time you ask for something, it was always a no. So you don't respond to no's quite well. How do we deal with these inner things before we actually enter into a marriage? You're still muted, Elder Dawkins.
Greetings, everybody. I think you hear me now. Yes. Okay. Greetings again. Greetings to my co-panelists and everybody online. All right. Thanks again for that question. You're saying how do we deal with trauma and past hurt and stuff like that? Am I
Yes.
getting it right?
Yeah.
Okay. First and foremost, as human beings, we have to realize something we have to deal with. In this life, we're going to have hurt, we're going to have traumas, we're going to have all kind of things happening to us because the enemy is dead set to kill and destroy and to hurt and all of these things. And sometimes we innocently get hurt along the way. Sometimes we put ourselves into hurt. All of these things. It's a part of life. Life is ups and downs. So we are faced with a whole lot of things in life, but we just have to deal with it. As we looked at earlier, we're faced with death of loved ones. Um, Name it, you name it. All what life have to offer will be coming at us. But what do we do with the things that life throw at us? We can choose to lie down and allow life to throw every dirt on us, and we just lay down and allow the dirt to cover us up. And before you know it, all you see is a pile of dirt and will be no more. But we can choose to shake it off and keep going until one day you're over it. So it depends on how you plan to deal
Yeah,
with
but
things.
Elder Dawkins, when you say shake it off, what you mean is kind of shaking it off? What we mean exactly?
All right. When I say shake it off, just like everything else that comes along your way, all the
And
negative things.
also to interrupt you, does shaking it off mean that I'm avoiding the actual issue?
No.
Because just like
All right.
if somebody said to me, um, me not like you, I can shake it off, means I don't pay it any
Yeah.
attention, but I
Mhm.
can like how you. So what do we mean necessarily when we say shake it off?
No, I didn't get the last thing that you just said. You break up a bit. Say
Oh,
that
so
again.
someone can say something to you that you don't like, and you just kind of
Mhm.
shrug it off and you just move on. But
Mhm.
you don't necessarily address the fact that you didn't like. I mean, you don't have to argue it out, but you can just kind of let them know, hey, kind of deal with it in a more quote unquote professional way, right? So, are we saying to just in terms of boy just to turn a blind eye, quote unquote, or to actually face the issue?
When I say shake it off, don't get me wrong. I don't mean that things will happen to you and you just, oh, just shake it off and get on with life. No. We're going to find the positive to rise again. In other words, let me give you an example. For me, I think one of the greatest loss I've ever had is my mother. I never knew I could survive without her because my mother was just everything to me. I could say we grew up together and it was just everything together. And to lose her was to lose somebody out of my space, which I just couldn't imagine. But when she died, yes, it was bad. Um, you cried, you everything, but after a while, you just have realized she's dead, and you just have to get on with life. You just have to put your best foot forward. So you will have to look towards what do I do now? So I could choose to lie down and bawl every day. I could choose to stay back home and go to my mother grave and talk to her every day and bawl and weep and mourn, and until now I'd still be doing it. And who to tell her maybe in a bad mental state. But what do we do when life throws things? We have to get on with life. We have to find a way to put our best foot forward. Because if we don't understand how to overcome trials and tribulations, it's going to get us down, because that's what it's there for. It's there to get you down. So it's either going to break you or it's going to make you. So how do you handle life's trauma? How do you handle what life threw at you? I tell people, for me, and I am always the one in the background. And people always say things about me. So that don't hurt me anymore, because I have to be always fighting this. And because I always have to be fighting this to overcome. I overcome that. So I am on my way when it comes to that. But not everybody can deal with that. But what I'm saying is that we can't consistently allow negative and trauma and all of these things that life throw at us to keep us down. Whatever it takes to rise above it, rise above it. If it means that we're going to have to find a counselor, if it means that we're going to have to pray, whatever it takes to rise above it, rise above it. Because let's be honest, we could choose, anybody can choose to just lie down and let life roll over you. But at the end of the day, whose life will be hurt? The person that is doing all of these are people who is doing all of these bad things to your life, throwing all of this on you. It's not going to affect the other person, it's not going to affect anybody else. It's your life. So you have to make a conscious effort. What do I want from life? Am I going to just lie down, take everything, and let it just roll over, and I just play dead, and I come in this world, and at the end of the day, when I'm going out, all I do is mourn my way out? No. I'm going to challenge it. I'm going to take it on. I'm going to fight my way, because we have to understand we're in a fight. So we just have to fight. It's just sad that this is what we have to work with, but we just have to fight. We have to fight our way through. We have to ask God to help us and to just push on through. And one other thing I realized, sometimes, I remember one time I was thinking about something, and the Lord said to me that the pain is greater than the hurt. So I am thinking about this thing, but I am taking it so deep. I'm taking it deeper than what really had happened. So I have to now understand that I can have a pity party and lie down and just mourn over this and mourn over this every day. I have to rise above it, because what? All things work together for good. Lord, what are you trying to teach me in this situation? Because the other day I was talking to somebody and I said to them that we're talking about this person had a bad relationship, very bad. And a matter of fact, he's a friend of mine. We went to school together, so I know his lifestyle. And he's a person who grew up, no father, mother barely could help him. He got married and the relationship was bitter. And he was just in a bad state. And I had to say to him that, listen, my man, you have to take control of your life, because at the end of the day, you alone, you are the only person that is going to stand up and say, boy, my life was bad or my life was good. So you have to take a stand. You have to start loving yourself. You understand? So you can't just because other persons is trying to do this or what. We can blame everybody, but we have to take a stand. We have to take a stand over our life.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'd like to add to this as well, in terms of even just taking a stand over your life, is that I remember one day I was listening to someone who went through a traumatic experience as a younger person, and she was saying that her father used to beat her. He was very abusive, not regular beat, oh, make it trouble. No, her father was abusive. And she said she tried for her whole life to escape anything that looked even close to this. And she actually ended up marrying someone just like her father. And she did not see that in the offset. So that's one of the things as well, when it is that we don't actually deal with our issues, when it is that sometimes we don't recognize that we actually attract the very things that we are trying to run from, because we have absolutely, we have blocked out so much things in terms of surrounding the situation that we can't even identify what would have caused it, whether it is self-inflicted or an external factor. What would have caused, we can't identify anything with it at all. So when it is that it should even come anything within our space, we don't know how to deal with it. And so I'm going to just throw another question. Dr. Celia, um, how do we, sorry, what are the best practices for having a good mental health?
All right, so I'm just going to continue from Elder Dawkins, right? So he encouraged everybody, you have to rise above, which is true. You have to build that level of resilience in yourself to say that I will not allow this to get me down. But the reality is this, right? There are some situations that we can say that to ourselves and push beyond and it work. Sometimes it doesn't work like that, and not for everyone. Again, it depends on what is happening. Sometimes we find ourselves in a situation where there are a lot of things happening at the same time, right? There are a lot of negative things happening in our lives at the same time. And so, probably if we were to go through one situation, we would have had enough to pick ourselves back up and go. But when it becomes overwhelming, sometimes we need help, right? So when it comes to best practices for mental health, it has to start with us as individuals, right? It has to start with how we view ourselves. How is it that we process things and how we think, right? We have to get it at the place where we train our mind to be positive, right? We have to get to the place where we know how to not harbor negative thoughts and internalize negativity. We have to get to the place where we know how to replace the negative thoughts and the lies and replace them with the truth of God, right? And with positive words. We have to get to that place. We have to get to the place where we know ourselves, we understand how we operate, what are our triggers, right? So we need to pay attention to ourselves because sometimes especially when we see repeated patterns in our life, we need to turn and look at ourselves and see what is it that I am doing, or is what is it that I'm lacking? Why I keep on finding myself in this situation. Sometimes it is God's way of taking things out of us. But if we don't stop and look at ourselves, we won't, one, recognize the problem and then to get out to our deliverance, right? We need to learn how to create good means of letting go, good outlets, right? So everybody is different. For me, music does it for me. When I'm down, I play my music. In the morning when I'm going to work, I play my music and I play the music for what I need at that time. A word of encouragement to uplift my spirit that brings me into that situation or brings me through that situation, right? Going out, create an atmosphere where you have good people in your circle. And good people is not about the number of people you have in your circle, it's about the quality of the people you have in your circle, right? If it's one person, you hold on to that one person. Because remember, you don't want to harbor somebody who's going to give you wrong counsel. You want somebody who is going to operate in the spirit and speak a word into your spirit when you are down. Somebody who is going to pray you through, right? So you need to pick the right circle to have. That is very important. The other thing is eating healthy. Sleeping. As simple as those things are. Sleeping, eating right, exercise. A lot of men use exercise as their means of de-stressing, right? You hear a lot of the gym guys talk about it. They look forward to going to the gym or even going to play football or basketball because it's a good avenue to let go of whatever stress they have experienced throughout the day. So find that avenue that allows you to let go of your stress. The word of God, you cannot ignore the word of God. It is so crucial, right? Because you need the word of God to be able to speak into your situations, especially when you become overwhelmed. And prayer is so important. Sometimes you're in a situation where you are faced with a situation where it is so sensitive. It's overwhelming for you and it is so sensitive, but you don't know who to go to because the reality is that it's hard to find good people who you can trust, especially with sensitive things, right? And so the importance of having a good relationship with the Lord, you can sit down and talk to God about it. Just being able sometimes to say what the situation is out loud, it helps, right? Sometimes we hold it up in our mind and in our heart and we hold it inside and God, it heavy. But just being able to say it out loud, sometimes it does wonders, right? I talk about community. Yes, I mentioned all of that. No, outside of all of that, there is absolutely nothing wrong with seeking professional help, right? Prophetess Jordan mentioned she did counseling and it didn't help. But there are some people that counseling, it will help and it is absolutely necessary for persons to get to where they need to go, right? There are some people that they need to have them sessions set up every week so that they can go and sit down with the psychologist or the counselor in order to get them out. And it's not just counselor by itself, it's everything together. It is the praying, it is the reading of the word, it is eating healthy, it is exercise, and it is counseling as well. Because sometimes we are at a place where we are at the brink of heading over into a mental health disorder, right? And if we don't get the help and get the professional help, then it is only time to we tip over, right? And you know, as human beings, we're very fragile. I don't even think we understand how fragile we are. Today, things can be so good, and tomorrow we don't know what will happen. And that is life for you. And it's not that you were in a bad mental state yesterday and today something happened. You could have been in the best of mental health yesterday, and something tragic happens today, and it becomes so overwhelming that it shakes you to your core. We also have to learn how to be honest with ourselves, right? Sometimes we don't talk up because we are afraid of what people are going to think of us. We're going to look as if we're weak, or we're going to look as if we're failing, right? And sometimes we are afraid to be honest and speak up. But you know what? I recognize we are all, as human beings, we all feel the same thing. We all go through the same thing. When we step out, we look good and everything is good and we have everything in control. But the reality is that, you know, we're flesh. And so we have to learn how to be honest and to speak up when we need help. Speaking up is strength, right? Speaking up is strength. So those are the things I would recommend in terms of best practices.
Right, and I can definitely agree in terms of finding the help if it is that you do need the help.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, we're only doing ourselves a disjustice, right? So let's move to Dawkins again with one of your questions on the spiritual group. So how can singles maximize their relationship with God and walk in their purpose?
Okay. First and foremost, we have to know our purpose in order to walk in it. So singles, not just singles, but everybody, we have to first know our purpose so we can walk in it. And so persons might ask, how can I find my purpose? And purpose is not just religious, it's not just purpose in the church or as a child of God, but purpose on earth. What are the things you like to do? So those are purpose too. But we can find a purpose by sometimes revelation. God will reveal it to us. Sometimes we find our purpose by different persons by maybe like visions and dreams and stuff like that. Some persons some person might point it out to you that you have this kind of gift or that kind of thing. So those are different means of finding our purpose. But so before we can maximize our walk into this purpose, we first have to find our purpose. And from time to time, I hear a lot of persons asking are saying that they're not sure what their purpose is. But just like, say, for instance, in the secular world, the things we do and love to do, as we always hear, the things you do and love to do, uh, it's always something that you should try to get in, because if you're enjoying what you're doing, then it becomes not so much work anymore, but it could be known as, let's say, play, for a better word, but something that we are enjoying and it's fulfilling. And so in the Christian arena, in the church arena, we have to find
Just
out.
to cut your Elder Dawkins, and I can ask this because I know you.
Mhm.
So just in terms of, I hear you speaking about, your purpose is what you like and all of that. But before you were in construction, you were doing woodwork and you
Yeah.
knew nothing about construction. So how you knew that you would have liked it and that would have been your purpose?
All right. And I must answer you, neither of the two is my purpose.
Okay,
What
so what is
I
your purpose?
what I like to do, I like to make things.
Oh, okay.
So you see, it's not really woodwork or construction. I like to make things. So if say for example construction is not working and you switch me to making cars, I would enjoy it just the same. What I like to do is to take nothing and to make it out into something. That's what I really like to do. And so as I said, so your purpose might not be a specific thing like what you point out, but
Right.
really, I like from I was a boy, I love to make things, and so I transition into making things. Don't get me to fix anything. I don't like fixing. I like making. And so, but I didn't know that was my purpose until later on in life. I realized it started making me feel fulfilled. When I make things for you for free, just to look back at it and see how it looks, and it's fulfilling. Just look at it. So so yeah, so things like that. Then you know you are enjoying it and stuff. So you know that is your purpose in the Christian arena now, then you have to find, what do I do that makes me feel fulfilled? In other words, let me just give a little scenario. When I go to church, when I go to evangelize, when I go here, when I'm doing it, what makes me fulfill at the end of the day? Persons who preach will tell you this, that when I go to preach, and if preaching is your purpose, when I go to preach or when I go on a street meeting and when I talk to some souls or talk to some persons, when I finish or when I encourage somebody, when I finish, you feel fulfilled. So that level of fulfillment brings joy. And so as singles or Christian, not just singles, we should find our purpose because it really brings back joy. So you're giving yourself, you're giving just what the Lord bless you with, and it brings back joy to your life, and so you're left with a level of happiness. So how can I be giving and then be happy? But it's kind of funny to say, but it's just how it works. It's just how it works. So it's very important to find your purpose and to walk in it, because the level of joy that you get from walking in your purpose, I don't think you're going to find it anywhere else. So it's very fulfilling as a person, or personally and spiritually. So I would recommend that persons seek to find it and to walk into it.
All
I
right,
hope
thank you.
this helps.
All right, thank you. One of the things, because this is, and I won't get too deep into it because it's not the topic for today. But I remember recently I was thinking, and it's been a thought of mine before, whereas oftentimes when you're in school and you have someone who is just brilliant, 15 subject, all ones in a CXC, and when they're through and they go university, you wonder like what happened to them, because you would have seen so much talent in and they are great at so many things, and yet still it feels as if it is that they are down. So one of the things that I actually love that you spoke to today, or tonight rather, is the fact that even though them could have throw you anywhere, whereas it concerns with using your hands in general, and not even just using your hand, but just making things. One of the key thing is that the overarching thing overall is that you would like to make things. So it's not necessarily something specific that you have to try to look to, but you focus in at a specific time. So maybe the first time you found your life moving into carpentry and you explored that for a while, right? But you focus in on it. You weren't doing carpentry and then you were doing construction and you built engine around it. You weren't doing too many things all at once. But what you did was really to zoom in on one thing at a time. And that is something I would just like to encourage anyone out there who may think that, they're so good at so many things, and that may be the case for real. But try to narrow down the things, and even something that I heard recently as well. Try different things. If it is, for instance, you realize that you love cooking and you're cooking and you realize eventually, me not really love probably the seasoning of the meat. That may not be for you, but at the end of the day, try various things. In the kingdom of God, you may realize that, for instance, boy, you just love how them work the and somebody get delivered and you feel it and you see it even when everybody kind of distracted during out of that may be something that you need to move to. So maybe you won't necessarily move to the altar same time to say, all right, yeah, I'm in the battlefield. Because, for instance, if I'm a new convert, I wouldn't encourage a new convert to just come straight through the door and to reach to the altar. But you can observe. So observe, get close to persons within the missionary area, get close to persons, who may love these things as well. Have a conversation with them and see if it is that it's something that you'd want to explore. All right, so thank you so much, Elder Dawkins. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we are going back to Lady Jordan. And so my question is for you. is how do we find, or how does someone find joy in life after loss?
Okay. You have to set new personal goals. It is important. And for example, you have to focus on the moments. Cherish the moments that you had. Because sometimes some of the moments it lets you cry, sometimes it make you laugh. For example, you remember the good times that you and your spouse had, and some of those good times it make you laugh. For me, for example, sometimes I remember those times it make me laugh, it make me cry. But I have to also know that I have to set personal goals. Set yourself personal goals. You can learn different skill. You can, you know, do things different. Cause you have to do things different to make sure you can feel joy again. You can find joy again even after a loss. Because even sometimes when you are grieving, you still in even though you are grieving, you still can find joy in that grieving. Because it is possible, while you are grieving, you still have the joy. You can find joy when you are grieving. You can feel joy, even the sadness of time, because it's still present without even being destructive. You have to shift your focus. You find yourself laughing sometimes. You're feeling the joy more easily, more often. So you have to shift your focus. It is important that you shift your focus. And also it is important that you connect yourself with people. Get involved. It's important that you get involved in activities, because for me personal, I was very involved in church. Not that
Yeah.
that that's that I know involved now, even though I migrated. But in church, I was very involved, and I think that was also helped me, because I was involved. And even in the loss, I still come to church. It's good to come to church, go to church, even the time of loss. I never stop from church, even when I come to church. And it said, I sit in that service and I will cry from the beginning of the service and to the service end, but I still come to church. I still come to church. And I was involved in so many different ministry in the church. And that's what also helped me. But and then again, when you're around people that will give you, a sense of hope. Because there was a lot, I must say, there was a lot of church people there for me. My church family, Emmanuel family, was there for me. And that also helped me, because at the time I didn't have any relative out there in Jamaica. It was just me alone and my kids. And the church family was there with me. And I can't forget that. And also it is good also to be active again, you have your purpose. Bring your purpose. It helps you to bring your purpose out. Be active, because you cannot just show down arms and say, well, I won't able to do anything again because I'm grieving. But there's joy in the sorrow. Even there you're grieving that loss, you still can find joy. But you have to change some things. You have to reset your mind. You have to think different, because there's this loss that you're dealing with. You have to do things different. You have to cultivate, your own self. Cultivate and acknowledge that you are in a place of healing right now. So you have to cultivate an environment differently, and you have to do things differently. Some days it will be harder, and some days it will be easy. So
Right.
as you go through the process, some days it get harder, and then as next time it get easier. But as the days and months and years go by, you find it, it become lesser and lesser. You're not gonna forget it, because this is something that you got to live with for the rest of your life until
Right.
you exit also this world. So you can find joy again, and you have to make sure you give yourself space and time, and get involved with things that will make you feel joy with people around you, because it's important to get the support of people. People is important in your life. So when you get the support of people, friends, family, your church family, co-workers, it is important, because sometimes they will come around, and they know that you are grieving, but they sometimes they do things and says things to make you just feel happy. And during that time, you find yourself start to smile again, start to laugh again, because they come with the right words, the right vibes to make you feel happy. And during that time, you find yourself smiling again. You find yourself, you don't have that much sadness like before. It's getting less and less. So you have to just identify also small things, do things simple, what you enjoy. Do things that you enjoy. For example, like for music, whatever you find that you'll enjoy, do it to make you feel that joy again. Because there's joy again, even though you are grieving a loss, you can find joy again. Get yourself, do some volunteer things. Get yourself involved. Always get involved in things. Always, make time and find time to do things for yourself. Set goals for yourself, new goals, because now you are living a life now is a singleness, and this is a different life from when you was living with your partners. So you have to do things differently. You have to set new goals. You have to think differently. And also, it's good to invest in yourself. While you are setting goal, invest in yourself. It's important that you invest in yourself. And then some person have to seek professional. Nothing wrong with seeking professional help and counseling or therapy. It's also help you to navigate. But as I said, for me, it didn't help me. That therapy really did help me. I went 3 times and then I said, this is foolishness. This is not helping me. But I go back and think back. I said, I went back to God and I said, God, you're going to have to help me through this. And what really helped me with support, as I said, are friends, my church family, and other person. But I went back to God for myself and said, God, this is painful, but you have to help me. I went back and I pray. And prayer, I tell you, prayer, even though I'm grieving the loss at the time, but I pray and I tell God exactly how I feel. I said, God, this
Amen.
is very hard. I said, God, this is a hard thing. I said, God, this is painful. I talk to God as how I feel. I tell him how I feel, and that also helped me. And it's also important to talk, and it's important for a person to listen to you. It is important to talk it out. Don't keep it inside. When you talk about it, it's help you a lot. And sometimes during the process, I'll be talking about Brother Jordan and I'll be laughing. And I wonder about, I'm laughing. But some things that I remember about him, I will laugh sometime when I'm talking. So there's joy again. You can find that joy again in the process of grief. You don't have to buckle up all of these emotion. Cry if you need to cry. Discuss your feeling with friends or family. And get support group. It's good to have support groups. And that's what helped me again. And I'm just encouraging the person that grieving, the loss of a loved one, whether your spouse or your a parents or siblings. It's good to really have support group and discuss your feeling. Talk. When you talk, it's help you a lot. And some people they don't talk, they bottle it up in their heart, and that is not good. But it's good when you can talk. Find the right person to talk to, because sometimes you can talking to person and it's not the right person. Always find the right person to talk to, and it's good also to identify small things, simple things that you will enjoy, things that you will make you feel good in yourself again, things that will make you feel happy again. Identify those goals and invest in yourself as you set new personal goals for yourself, learning new skill. Learning new skill, do things differently, because no, you don't have that spouse again. So you have to do things differently. It's not gonna be the same. Life will never be the same again. It's a different life. It's not gonna be the same like when you have that spouse in your life. It's not gonna be this way. Everything just gonna be different. So you have to you have to have a different mindset, change your mindset, and do things different. And take your time slowly. Joy often returns slowly. It's a process. It's take time, and starting with being fully present and engaging in doing small moments, and and just remember those moments and cherish them, and you find yourself, the joy is slowly coming back, coming back, coming back, coming back.
Right. I do agree. Joy, matter of fact, getting over anything, and coming to transitioning from a place of grief to just feeling some kind of normalcy will always take some time. And one of the things that you said is talk and cry. Men especially talk about it. It's okay to cry, men. I know females, it's natural for us. It's okay to cry. We're not saying to publicly, turn on your camera and you have to go live to let everyone see that you're going through it. But it's okay to cry. It's okay to, as she mentioned before, speak to God. And one of the things one of the things that she said in terms of even speaking to God is that when it is that you speak to God, you're actually even opening up the experience that you're having and you're facing it. You're getting a better understanding. You're facing the issue that it is that you're having. You're not just keeping it within, you're talking about it. You're releasing it. Us as females, we'll repeat it 50 million times. And so before I even go to one of Leron's question, I actually want to, very briefly, because oftentimes females, we deal with things a different way than how men deal with it. It's easy for us to talk and cry and, we'll go call our sister one side and we talk, 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 talk. But sometimes the men, you will hear this as things like, and I have a lot of male friends, I can tell you. You hear the males that think that, time and number talking, I mean, like talking, yeah. Or cry, weak and jelly back and man, and so we raise and to move on and all of these things. But at the end of the day, all of us
You
are
need to
going through
find some
something.
you need to find some new
Every
friends.
last one of us. What you said, hello?
You need to find some new friends.
Maybe. Well, that is why we're going to have you to give a brief example in terms of how men may deal with it different from how females may deal with it.
So the truth is, um, we are wired differently, men, women, and that's why God made us how we are. Men are rational beings, for the most part, and we don't necessarily wear heart on our sleeves. And some things may be bottled up. But just the same, men talk is just like men talk to specific people and within a specific space. The truth is, women don't allow men to talk. So that's the problem, right? And women don't create that safe space. So a man will talk where he feels safe. A man who doesn't speak at home, but catch him at the rum bar speaking to the bartender,
Right.
right? So sometimes females have to recognize as well that sometimes you're the problem. True, right? So men, if a man feels judged, if a man feel like he doesn't have a space to operate safely, he won't speak, right? If you're always giving solutions, you don't need to. Probably just need to listen, and that's probably part of the difficulty. So men speak. I have a friend. I can tell you. I know that for certain that that man, he won't have a mental disorder of any sort, and he won't be suicidal because any problem in his life, catch him on a good day, he'll tell me every single thing, right? Um, so men speak and men talk. If we have a men's talk at church, the man them can't stop talking. Safe space, right? That is allowed. So again, there's a reason why God created females. There's a reason why God created men. When God looked, Adam had God as company, but God saw that he needed physical company, and he provided a spouse. Sometimes we find that men, is almost like a competition in the space, and where men, sees that threat, he's gonna pull back. So probably that's why he doesn't speak. But yeah, the outlet is there. And as to address your question a little bit more directly, talking happens. Men, as Doc said earlier, we have outlets. There's football. There's a reason why some men get lost in a football or a cricket game or whatever means, just to drown out some of that. Driving out, doing all of those things. Praying, we still do that. And we still cry out to the Lord. Men cry if they need to. But most of the time, a man will sit down and try to figure out a million ways how he can solve his problems. Where it comes to emotional problems, though, that's where he gets.
Logical.
Yeah, you get confused. When it comes to matters of the heart, it's very difficult to deal with, right? So you need an outlet for that. And I'd encourage the men to find somebody confident. Really and truly, as I've always said, it's very difficult, especially for a working person, to have many good friends. You have a lot of acquaintances, but you just need one or two, three or four persons who you really can confide in, and share things from time to time. Have a group of people if you need to. I've known of persons, for instance, who were divorced, and they had an opportunity to create a small group, gather as men, share, pray, and relationships are formed out of that. So there are different ways, that will happen. Unfortunately, that whole, how you described it or what you mentioned, there is this notion that men must behave a particular way. And sometimes we put men in boxes and say, every man different. As Doc said earlier, I grew up in a house with my brother. My brother is totally different person from me, right? My emotions are way more controlled. Most of the fights, I think I said this already, most of the fights that I fought was not for me. I mean, I'm people in the kitchen problem, but my brother did, right? So we men are different. The point I'm making is that we also, from an external standpoint, should treat with it. Don't try to say a man must behave a particular way or a man must act a particular way. Even if you're in courtship, don't look and say you're a person who you want to be in a relationship should behave like the next person. I don't go out looking for somebody who is a replica of somebody who you think is a good example, and you want the person to behave that way. You don't know what happens behind closed doors, to be very honest. So allow men, and men should allow themselves to be themselves, right? I think that's the best formula in terms of even having an outlet, right? Doc said it earlier about, being honest and true to ourselves, which is a good way to reconcile where you are and where you need to be, right? So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for that. All right. So one of the things that he said, just put some emphasis on it. Men find like-minded peers, right? Find some like-minded peers that you can speak to. And females, create a safe space for the men. Your single females, keep in mind, create a safe space. But given that we're on the topic of relationship, we're going to go back to Elder Dawkins. And your question is, how can singles overcome sexual temptations and live in sexual purity?
Okay. All right. How can we overcome sexual temptation and live in sexual purity? Well, one I think we need to look at is our sexuality is natural. It's natural that God made us the way we are, and we have desires for the opposite sex, and that is not going to go away. We should have desire, and that is not going to go away. It's a natural thing, like how you wake up and you need some food to eat. That is something that you will have to deal with. However, it is something that we have to control, because while it's designed for a specific purpose, it has to be used for the purpose which it was designed for. And so, not because you're hungry, it means you can go into the middle of a meeting and go eat. No, we have to have control. And so is it our sexuality. We have to have control over it. And it's not going to go away, as I said before. So we will definitely have to deal with it. But what are the challenges that we are having as human beings is we feed our sexual desires. We disturb our emotions. Say for instance, as a single person, we know we don't have any partner, we are not married and stuff like that, but we are feeding ourselves on
But
sexual
Elder
things.
Dawkins, just to
Yeah.
cut you, for instance, as we know, because I remember even one day being online and someone was saying that, she usually have certain her children when they get to a certain age. But
Mhm.
here is her, I think she was below 10, let's say 8 years old.
Mhm.
Here is her 8-year-old daughter now using her tablet regular, she's young, that's not on her mind. Here is this whole heap of things popping up
Mhm.
on her tablet. So even on social media, as you scroll, so you see something naked. So
Mhm.
yes, we can do it in terms of oh let me not actually actively go and find it. But when it is that it's right, especially in nowadays culture, females are literally going out in suits. What can we do as Christians to help us to not drift away these sexual temptations?
All right. First and foremost, we have to be focused in a sense that um, I am a man and I like ladies. I can look at every single lady I see pass in a bath suit with her skin well brown and look good. Me can't sit down and focus on all of them I pass. I go and be a madman sitting on the roadside. So it simply means I go have to ignore them. For my own sanity, for my own everything, I will have to ignore it. I love cars. I can't sit down and look at every pretty car pass and say, boy, I like that one, and a new Benz that look good and a new BMW. No. So I mean, we have to get real with what we have to deal with, This is a world that we have at the handle. It's not an easy place. Everything that most things that we have dealing with, is to get us down. And I said before, life is set to get us down. And we can lie down and make it kill us. Or we can choose to rise up against it. So, yes, the enemy, they're selling water, is a naked woman. They're selling car, is a naked woman. And sometimes I wonder, why we not see naked man? But I don't know why. But is a naked woman. And so the enemy knows that women don't really get troubled so much by a naked man, but men get troubled by a naked woman. And so this is the reality that we have to be dealing with. And so the enemy create all of these things to get us distracted. And we have to understand what is distraction. But if I understand what is distraction, one other thing I said to persons, it don't make sense to feed yourself with something that you know going to hurt you. If I know I'm weak on money, I can't live with money. I don't want a cashier job. I'm sorry, I don't care how much it pay. I'm not going to put myself through that kind of temptation every day. So as human beings, we have to guard ourselves, guard our minds and our desires. I can say this. At one point, I love songs. I love songs, not love songs, but I love music on a whole. For those of you who know me in the early days, I used to be on the choir. I like music. Music is something that, trust me, I can listen to music 24 hours a day. And one at a time I realized that I was so gravitated to music till I listened to every music. And you know these love song guys, they are just on top of the world with their tones and their harmonies, and they are just.
Oh, well, Elder looked like he actually fell off. I'm not sure if it is connection or what exactly. So until he comes back, let's take one question from the audience. Anyone has a question, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Just one though, for now.
Sister Rashan, he's back.
Yeah,
All
I
right, go
don't know.
ahead.
I don't know what happened. I just drop off.
All
Yeah.
right, go ahead, Elder.
So I realized that this thing was eating me alive. So I just had to part with all of these things. I had to just get rid of all of what is the distraction. So we just have to be sensitive about what we're dealing with. It doesn't make sense to know that I'm a single person and I am going to hang around all of these pretty girls in their bath suit and all of them things and stuff and start stirring up my head and my emotions. No, no, it's going to get you down. So for us to overcome these things, we have to run from it. We have to stay far. Don't tell yourself say you're strong enough till, oh, I can go to the beach every day and look at all of these girls in the bath suit. I guarantee you one of these days you're going to drown. So don't put yourself through all of this kind of thing. So it's as the scripture said that we sin when we're drawn away by we lust is literally with desires. So whatsoever you know your desire is a your weakness or you have a shortcoming, run, stay far from it. Just stay far away from the things that you know you have a challenge with. Don't challenge yourself on it because I think more you challenge yourself is more you're going to lose. So we just need to focus, stay far. And one I think is that we have to as Christians know that we have to hate sin. And as Bishop always say, sin will take you further than you plan to go. And it might feels good now to get ourselves involved with all kind of stuff and all these kind of things. But how are we gonna feel later on? You Russian, you can attest to this. I always say to my children that if the fun you're having today, when you think back about it 20 years from now, if it don't bring you joy, it's not fun. If it don't bring a smile on your face, it's not fun. If 20 years from now you can look back at it and said that was good, it's not fun. And we can attest to that most of the things that we do in sin, even if it feel good now, 5 years from now, we're going to bring some bitter taste to our mouth. And so we have to consciously make a conscious effort not to get ourselves into some of these things. Sometimes we always say the Lord will forgive us and all of these things, but we know there are consequences for our behavior. And yes, we might get forgiveness, but how do we deal with the consequences? How do we deal with the hurt? How do we deal with the pain? How do we handle the things that is going to left, the residue? Uh, did it really worth it? Um, yeah. So if I would say once we're not married, don't sit around and plan all of these things and because the truth is there's so much things to do in life. And don't get me wrong. All of us have our sexual desires and we desire to be loved and all of that, and it's something natural. It is something natural, and it's something to be desired and all of that. But what if we never get there? Just like all of us, we desire to have a house upon a hill looking over Kingston, and but what if we never get there? What are we going to do? So we have to be realistic with what we are dealing with, and don't get ourselves into stuff that mess up our headspace, because once we start playing with our emotions and stuff like that, before you know it, we're going to get into things that we're not supposed to get into. And when the hurt starts, God help us. So let us develop a relationship with God and see our very best how we can live from sin and just live to please God. Because it's one of the best things. When we can look back at it years after and we'll enjoy it, it will bring us happiness and joy. So yeah, that's what I would say.
All right,
So,
so I want
um,
everyone to type in the chat now. RUN run. Come on, I want everyone to type in the chat now. RUN run. We just had a sports day about 4 weeks. I need some runners in the chat right now. You know,
so
oftentimes we hear the story about and it's just a story to us. All we are thinking about is physically running. But mentally, someone we need to run. Someone we need to run. Run from the thought, run from the conversation, run from the desires, and find other things to do with our time. You know, one of the things that he said, I said, Sophia, so we have a whole army of runners. You know, some of the times the consequences that we have to deal with is how hard it is to escape the very sin that we would have placed ourselves in. Because if you know anything about the sins that you truly desire, you see, the moment you touch it and the devil bring you far, and then you reach here and you wonder how me end up here, and then you try come out of it, is one of the hardest things to come out of. Trust me. Because you would have tasted something you never should have tasted. So my encouragement, RUN, run. All right, so back to Elder Lerone right now.
before you ask the
So,
question, right? Before you
all
ask me
right,
the
go
question, I
ahead.
wanted to say something. One of the examples that I always use to tell people that I don't want to be a pastor, I don't want a congregation to deal with, is this example I'm going to give now. So you'll have people in the church who are suffering with this thing of, sexual immorality or impurity, and you have this temptation and you find yourself in a bad place. So that's for single people. When you get to people who are married now, same people, who had the problem struggling over there with
Right.
having sex, when they get into marriage now, you have the husbands complaining that they're not getting enough sex. So it means simple that we have a stronger will than we really think we do. Because
Right.
when you get over on the other side where the thing is in abundance, then all of a sudden, looks so attractive, right? And that's one of the things that, the devil uses. But the recommendation is still the same. Run. It's easy. Let me say this, brethren. It's
Yeah.
easy for us to say, boy, I'm not do this. How do you deal with the temptation that is right in front of your face? Some of you go to work every day, somebody who you're attracted to. What do you do? I think you take evasive actions. Um, Also, don't get into the habit of selling yourself a lie. Sir Dawkins said it, right? You can easily get to the place where you think, hey, I'm strong enough. No, you're not, right? You can also get to the place where you start telling yourself, oh, but why would God not want me to have this good thing that He made, right? So don't tell yourself no lie, right? Including that, because when you get over on the other side, as you said, Lady Dawkins, and you really, especially if you have a desire to serve the Lord, you're gonna feel so bad and you're gonna look that it's far. And worst thing is that you get to a place where you're comfortable with the sin and you're thinking deeper and deeper. it's unexplainable. I remember a wife telling me about her husband. The man left her for somebody else, left her for a church sister, and they both, all three of them would go to church on the Sunday. Everybody in the same church. The husband was a deacon. The sweetheart was a usher at the door, and the wife probably sing on the choir. And the three of them in the same church for years. And when church finished, wife went home, husband went with the sweetheart to the sweetheart house, right? So the husband called the wife one day to say, I don't know what has taken me over. I just can't come out of this thing, right? So, please don't enter dangerous grounds and you'll get lost. You can. And a lot of people who now don't come back to church and stay away from church, they're tied up into something else. Some of the people who them say, boy, me the online on Sunday daytime, we have 70 persons maximum on a Sunday. I'm sure, yeah, I get more than 70 people saying they're online. They're not they're hiding. They know what they're in, right? Dangerous. So run.
And that is the thing, one of the things that my father always says is that we oftentimes think we have power. It's so funny. We're so funny Christians. I'm not saying don't have faith in yourself, but sometimes we have too much faith, right? So I have a problem, a problem with security. Leron might have a problem with thieving. Um, Celia, for instance, may have a problem with gambling, right? Leron and Celia's issues is within the same category. Me know, me as all right then, I'm going to the lottery place and I call Leron and Celia and say, I prophesy because we love even draw God in night, Love draw God and me I say, boy, I'm a strong, me I go with her, I'm a strong car. Witness me, I go witness. But then when you're going there, your eyes open up to something where you're not strong enough to endure. And the Bible speaks to it. I don't remember where in the Bible speaks that help your brother and sister, I'm paraphrasing, help your brothers and sisters when it is that you see them going off into these diverse places. But be careful, saints of God, lest you may fall as well. So I may not have a problem, but maybe they have a problem. They know they have a problem, and instead of walking away, don't matter what, don't make your, as Sophia would always say, don't make your good evil off. Because you went there for the right reason. You're leaving. The right reason what you go there for is the wrong reason you're leaving with. So don't trick yourself, saints of God, and think that you have the power. You don't. And you will learn that once it is that you would have fallen into sin, that you don't have the power. Because when it's time to escape it, you realize you cannot escape it on your own. So you never have it from the get-go. So don't go there. I can tell you, because me sure, I can tell you, don't go there. Don't go there, saints of God. All right, so we're just going to, before we have the questions, we're going to go to one from the panelists, and then we just open up the floor. All right. Now, we've oftentimes heard about investments. We're in church, some people may or may not like to speak about finance. But we have spoken about it time and time again. We have heard about stocks and bonds and all of these things. Overseas, you might hear about, I mean, in general, you hear about like commodities, which is like gold and silver. You hear about heard about persons talking about option trading and whatever the case is. What are the avenues that we can explore in Jamaica? One, and how can we access these? Access these. Two, I hope you're writing it down. So how right, so what can we explore in Jamaica? How can we access these? And what does the time frame look like? Because when person say, boy, I got financial freedom from trading, or I got financial freedom from investing in stocks and bonds and real estate, and it sounds so good. But what does it really look like in terms of my finances changing?
Well, depending on what you invest in, it can be tomorrow, right? You might be blessed enough to invest in something that takes off. But generally, when you speak about investments, they're long-term in nature, and you have to be willing to put in the work. So, to address the what, there are a myriad of things that you can invest in. And not because you're in Jamaica, it means that you don't have access to everything else around the world. We're now in a global space where you can make literally any investment from your living room. You don't even have to leave out of your house, right? I can give you an example. I was able to open a US stock account on my phone using an app and give instructions to my bank to send the money to that US account for me to start buying US stocks, right? So that is also possible. So, you mentioned some of them. If you do not understand investments, and I'm talking about financial investments, I would say that you would need to ensure that you inform yourself. You have a little thing in your hand that you use all the time to scroll and laugh on Instagram and wherever. TikTok have a good time, but that's the most powerful thing you have at your disposal. You're right. So your phone come with Gemini, probably have Copilot or one of those things that you can use to Google or search what some of the good investments are. To tell you the truth, when I bought one of the things that I've always said that I would not buy US stocks or US equities is because there are so many different options in Jamaica is limited. And I said, but the advent of chat GPT, I went in, tell me some good US stocks to buy, top five. They break it down, they give you all of the analysis, and I invested, right? So that's at your option as well. So if you want to know about investment and you're interested in doing that, please do it. If you do not know about investments,
But
I,
to cut it around, so you say if you want to know, you make it sound so easy. If you want to know about it and just just
yeah,
just do that, where do we
yeah,
start?
it's easy. I gave you two tools: ChatGPT, you have Gemini, you have Copilot, you have Google, right? And you have YouTube. There are several.
Social.
Udemy
Mm-hmm.
is a free platform that people can sign up to get training on investment, whatever you want, right? And it's Udemy.
MY, yeah.
Yes. So that's another option. But YouTube for sure, if you want to know about investments, you go in, you type, it comes up. But if you don't have that appetite, you start small. How do you know currently save, right? Let's start from there. You start a savings before you reach an investment. Do you go in your bank account, walk with the cash, go over to the bank and lodge it somewhere to say you're saving? If you're doing that, you're in problems. Any investment, any savings that you're doing, it should be at some point in time automatic. Before it gets to your salary, it's out of your account already. So you tell your employer I want a salary reduction that goes to the bank or credit union, wherever you put in your money on a monthly basis, it's automatic. You don't see it. Over time, it becomes seamless, right? You put down $10,000 a month by the end of the year, that's $120,000. Some of us don't have that in our account because we eat it out every month when we get it in our hand, right? But you're continuously doing these things, right? So all the options are available. I might say I'm gonna stay away from the investment terminology, but let's use stocks, for instance, as something that you can do now because guess what? The Jamaican stock market is down. Stock market all over the world is down. So it's a good time to buy rather than you wait till it start going up back again and the prices are high and it's good and you buy and then you find that the stock fall or the prices fall. So what is a stock? Real quick, a stock is literally you purchasing into a already existing company. You become a shareholder, you become a part owner of that company, and you get if the company grows, you benefit from it, and the company pays a dividends. If the company pays out profits, a share of its profits, you get that. So let me leave it right there. There are also instruments that are fixed, meaning you can invest at 11%, 10%, 5%, and that goes on your account every single month and it rolls over until you decide that you want to take it. That's an easy option. But again, if you want those options, you have to speak to an advisor. However, outside of financial investments, you have other options. You can start a business your own self, right? People who like making things, and I did come on here tonight and I learned that Elder Dawkins like making things and he'll make things for free. Suppose I get him to make all of the things and I sell them. Good idea, right? And if you yourself, you can do embroidery, you talk about cooking, Lady Rashan. Some people are good cooks and probably you can bake and sell it, right? You're probably not the best seller, but you're a good baker. And you get somebody who is in the art of know how to sell things, right? Sell ice to Eskimo. Them can do that, right? So you can get that as well. So there are many options. Once you start a business, the Bible is, very clear on how we should invest. You said it earlier, Lady Dawkins. Try things. Especially now, let me bring it back to the singles. You're single, you're free, you're disengaged. Try things. Some things are gonna work, some things not gonna work. There are many things that I tried. Cash Plus never worked for me, but some other things work, right? So try things when you're young, when you're free, when you don't have children, right? Some things I did in the past, I can't do it no more because I have three people to feed. I can't take those chances. Me have to stick to
Risk.
things. Yeah, so me have to manage things within that space. But while you're able, you can try things, whether that be from you doing it yourself or you're investing in it. And I'm not encouraging you to go into any Ponzi scheme, by the way. So don't do that one. And that not work. So access your phone. It gives you access to a lot of things. In Jamaica, you can walk into an investment house and you can tell them that you want to open an account. Timeline, usually long term. I've seen some crazy stories where people make a lot of money legitimately, right? Where I work, and I'll tell you where I work, Barita Investments, we have a real estate product. Not a licensed financial advisor. I'm not giving you advice to go and buy it, but I'm giving as an example. This thing would have, for instance, it started at $500 per unit, right? So $1,000 could have given you 2 units, right? Today, that same product, and that was probably 2 years ago. Today, I said $500, right? Today, that same product is selling 18,900 and something dollars per unit. So people who would have invested, just take your phone and do your calculation. If you invested 100,000 in that thing, and I know some of you have 100,000 sitting in a bank account, right? Or 300,000 or a million or 2 million sitting in a bank account giving you 0.000 something percent. Take that million, divide it by the 500, you get the amount of units that you would have owned, multiply it by 18,000 now, and tell me what you get. Yeah. Somebody can put it in the chat, right? 1 million divided by 500, you have the amount of units that you own, multiply it by $18,000, and you can tell me the amount of money that you would have had over 2 or 3 years. Just saying. So there are many things. Again, it may be a matter of what you are willing to do because it is a risky investment. So for particular, that one was invested in 36 million. All right. Sounds about right. 1 million into 36. Sounds about right. So that was real estate, which, they were buying some nice properties, Reggae Beach, the ruins, but they have all increased in value significantly over a certain time. It could have gone the other way. Could have meant that you bought something else and they did something else with the money and you lose it. Right? It's just the reality. But it's based on how much you're willing to lose. If you don't want to lose anything, there are options for you as well. But if you're willing to take a risk, and I'll say, take a risk. Try something. If you're a coward, you get a coward's reward. Yeah. But usually long term, but there are other options. But I usually go for things that are longer term in nature because putting things aside for my personal benefit in the future and for my kids to benefit as well. So I purchase a lot of stocks that are fundamentally safe that I know that even if I pass 10, 15, 30 years from now, my children will be able to benefit. So that's my personal investment. So going back to the word intentional again, you have to picture the life that you want. If you're somebody who is easygoing, want to take any risk, but you want to, just kind of cruise through life, you can set out your investment journey in that way. But if you're somebody who really wants to get enough money that you can travel all across the world, then you have a pathway as well. You'll be taking more risk for sure, but you have that as well. So you have to be very deliberate and intentional, and you must apply discipline. Don't put the money this month and take it out next month. And don't put it in something that, boy, you say, all right, in 5 years' time, you'll come back. But because of here, say, the stock not perform well, you come and draw all of your money. And the next month, the stock go back up and you want to go back. So it can't work like that. So, work with the D's, the discipline, the dedication. Of course, you have to be diversified in your doing, and be dedicated and be very deliberate about what you want. I think one of the key things that you must do, Sir Dawkins spoke about purpose. But when you look on your life, you must envision the type of life that you want to live. And from you set that, how do you get there? Right? So you set out, boy, if I continue to put my money in savings account for the rest of my life, me not get no money. Me not gonna earn nothing. You can have other investment options. So it's really, based on your own goals and desires. Lady Jordan did use those words as well, setting goals and reinventing yourself.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to all our panelists for tonight. If it is that you have any questions, I'm just going to open up. No, okay, I see. Oh, well, Ruth is giving a hand clap. Thank you. But any question, you can just go ahead and raise your hand, and then one of the co-hosts or hosts will unmute you. Anyone with a question tonight? No one would like to? Okay, all right. So I'll say Angie.
Good night again. Yeah, there was, I don't remember his name, but he was saying that man don't talk much, but he didn't say the reason why man don't talk much. So I don't know if he's still on the platform, could go a little deeper with that for me.
Oh, why
I
men?
know, I mean, at home, but I have an idea why they don't talk much, but I need for him to talk more about it. Yeah. They prefer to go out and talk with their friends, and he said that they also open up with man to man and have a lot of talk. They will talk that way, but maybe at home, I think they don't talk much. But most of the time is a reason why.
Yeah, so I did say, Lady Angie, that men don't speak, especially in spaces that they don't feel comfortable or they feel threatened. So if
Yes,
if that is at home, then definitely he won't speak, because the wife don't allow him to talk without
exactly,
without her
exactly,
bashing him and
exactly.
cussing him out, right?
Yes,
That may be one. You have some people who genuinely are not talkers, right? But they talk in the right space, right?
yes,
Um,
yes,
Somebody might tell you that, boy, I don't know if this person being that a talker, but I know that person to be a talker, right?
yes,
Based on my own interaction with them. I'll give you my own example as well, that um I guess relationships are different, but genuinely, anybody who would have probably seen or known me, I don't genuinely talk when I just see people. I kind of observe or I serve for a little while, and then I'll probably speak. But, men assess things differently. And as I said, at the core of it, where a man doesn't feel comfortable, he'll probably just remain silent. And if my opinion is not valued, because guess what? Every time me tell you something, you always right.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah, go
yes.
ease off. Yeah.
Yeah. No, no, I know you're going to ease up because the reason why, okay, I will I will stand up, carve the border back, is that most ladies, special married ladies, living with a man, they nig the man come home, take off his shoes and not put it in the right way. It's a problem. You understand me? So the man will not talk, but most of the time just step away. So that's all the thing. And then that's how sometimes man go out there and get themselves into trouble. And then me see one going to quarrel again. So that's it.
Yeah, the
Most,
So
bartender,
most,
the
my
bartender
yeah.
not gonna trouble him. The bartender will
No, 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 no.
accommodate him.
Yeah, yes, yes, yes. So, as I say, we women, I mean, ladies have to change. Yeah, because man don't really like the needling. If you can do a thing, just do it and say, honey, you see, every day I have to come and take up his shoes. You just put it one side and one day we take it up. But don't quarrel. And then, him just step out. And then that's all relationship mash up also. We have to have a session about this and go deeper in this, okay? To save a lot of marriage. Yeah.
One other thing I'd like to add to that as well, Sister Angie, is firstly, um, let us exercise self-control with everything, because not because someone is affecting us negatively means that we necessarily should respond negatively. That's the first thing.
Yes.
Because one of the thing is as well, if somebody box me on my face, I can box them down too. But I can also choose to walk away.
Yeah.
But also one other thing I'd like to add to that as well is that um we will have disagreement, human
Yeah,
beings in
sure.
general.
Sure,
No,
sure.
no, let me just finish. So we will have disagreement. So whereas someone may do something and it gets you upset and you may argue, one of the things I've for a couple or two before is also when it is have probably a serious conversation, they make a space for safe conversations. So if it is that I am having an issue, one of the things we've often heard is don't argue when it is that you're in a state, but wait until the situation has died down to
Yes.
have a discussion about it. So pretty much alluding to that to say that, yeah, maybe on a regular day, I'm just miserable. Me I say, boy, I can't manage you. What is? But then there comes a day, I say, all right, then every day I'm getting up, me I argue the same thing. Oh, Christ, him nasty. Lord, me tired of him, and him just not change. What do I do then? One day I can read, honey, I want to talk to you. And
Mm.
for instance, he may or may not say, I want this to be a place of no judgment. We're just sit down and we kind of talk, but we clearly are having some issues that through, and we're not getting anywhere. If it is that you would have gotten married to the right person, or the person is receptive, which I think we all need to be as Christians, especially we will love go together as forgiveness. If it is that we're off that mindset, have
Yes.
that space where you together and actually dial down the situation. So yeah, you may have other cases where, where I get on top of my lungs and whether I right or wrong. But also when it comes to actually having a discussion, let it not be a space of judgment and someone feeling like they're not valued and, all of that's just my 2 cents. Someone
True,
else
true.
can add or.
It's true. And prayer, along with it. But that's true.
Um, so so one of the things I'd say is that when I was not married, I was talking to this young lady, somebody I was interested in, and most of the conversations would turn out into an argument, general misunderstanding. So I'll say something, and she was very intent on taking what I said and twisting it up, ultimately led into an argument. I'm not the argumentative type. I mean, I like peace and joy. So anything that I see that is going to go opposite of that, I'm going to take away myself. I said, listen, I'm not time for you, I'm not time for your foolishness, right? So I told her, I said, listen, clearly we have a communication issue. We're just not seeing eye to eye, and you are intent on starting an argument out of very simple things. And guess what? I don't have any space for that in my life. I'm not a counselor, I'm not a psychiatrist, and I don't have time for you to work on yourself to do that. And so I took away myself.
All right.
This young lady would have said sometime after that, you're right, because she found that she was doing it to somebody else. And it was something that she was now mindful of. But I'll say this for single people. If you're courting somebody, dating somebody, and you see a particular feature, characteristic for that person that you can't stand, you can't bear, Don't get married to that person thinking when they get into the marriage, it's gonna be solved. Truth is, people don't change that significantly, especially if them already blood washed, saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost. At the same somebody you get when you get to go into the marriage. You have to just them probably tweak a little bit to satisfy and to compromise and make it at the same person. Right? So you have to be very mindful of that because the same annoying thing what the person that they're gonna do, probably one day the Lord touch them heart and them say them are gonna change. But if them have the will and the desire, say them not change, you're dead in the show. Hmm.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Elder Dawkins, I see you unmute. You wanted to say something?
Just to add a little to what Ella just said, um, it's very interesting that we end up here, but just it's a singles seminar, so it's good to point out some of these things to our single folks. Um, the truth is, a lot of persons who goes into marriage is not ready for marriage. A lot of persons who goes into relationship is not ready for relationship. But because we are all in the church and the church says that we should not commit fornication, so we think to have legal fornication, we need to get married. But persons need to understand that marriage is a serious space. It's a serious thing. It's not something that we jump in, jump out. As a matter of fact, even if you plan to jump in and jump out, me can tell it easy if you jump in, God help you. If you think you can jump out, I don't know why you can jump out. The system, it's easy to just find somebody, go find a pastor and just get married, but God help you to get out. So we have to think when we are going to get into these things, what we are going to do. And one thing I really don't understand, I'm struggling to understand this, is how two adults, we can be so selfish at times and mess up something that will hurt the both of us. So we become self-centered. I want this and this for me, and it's all about what I want. And if we are going into a relationship about what I want, don't go. A relationship is about what I can give. And I can say this again. When we are going into a relationship, go in on the terms about what am I going to give. So I have some love inside of me. I have some emotions. I have some everything. I need to give it to somebody. Who am I going to give this to? Who am I going to love? Who am I going to take care of? Who am I going to? So it's not who is going to love me and who is going to take care of me and who are going to know. If we're going with that intention, we're going to have problem. Because when the person not doing that, then we're going to start have a me, and I problem. We need to go to give. No, nobody becomes a parent and expect the children to give to them. Once you become a parent, you expect so you have to give to your children. And so is it. Once you get into a relationship, as a man, you expect that your duty is to take care of your wife and your family. You're going to give. It's not for you to worry about if your wife is going to give you. Her duty is to give. And once we go in with this get mentality, we are going to have a problem. And we need to just focus on and the thing that what hurts me sometimes is how much I see the world creating what should be and selling it to the church. So persons come in with their ideology and this is what it is and not what God really created. God did not create marriage for the things that 90% of what we are doing now, that's not what God created marriage for. And if I keep saying this, if we continue doing the things we are doing the way we want to do it, and forget what God created things for and forget how He said it must work, tell me how is life 10 years from now? I guarantee you 100% it's not going to work. And this is where we end up with this man don't talk and man don't this and woman that and people this and brethren, if we're a child of God, we need to grow into what we are supposed to become. And it don't make sense to make a fool of ourselves. We are supposed to grow into what we are supposed to become. When we grow into what we are supposed to become, it's going to be so fulfilling. Yes, we're going to have problems. Yes, we're going to have challenges. As I said to my wife a couple years back, she come home every day even stressed out and the world a bite her and everybody at work a bite after her and everything. And I look at her and I said to her, listen me now, the world is going to throw things at you. And it going either go between us or go beside us. Where do you want it? So when the world bite you, you come home miserable and you bite me and then me go and bite the dog and all of we bite each other. No. We can choose to share our hurt, choose to share all of the bad times outside and we comfort each other. Before you know it, me look forward to come home and tell you about how bad was the day. And you look forward to comfort me through the day and then we're good. But what if you come home with your bad idea and your bad everything and you just bite everybody and everybody run and hide in them space? It don't make no sense. So how do we handle what the world is throwing at us? How do we handle what the enemy is trying to we a full time realize what the enemy are trying to do, you know, he's trying to kill us every chance him get, he might try to kill we, he might try to kill everything off of you. So how do we handle? We're married and we don't understand that. All right, you safeguard your life, you pray up, you fast, you everything. But yet the devil works through your kids, through your husband, through everything. And you not pick it up, you not understand, and you not understand. Say, you're picking them on that attack because the devil can't catch Jamaican time. Me can't catch Quaco, me and his shirt. No, you don't know say your shirt have a problem. You're not paying attention to your surrounding. And then what do I do when I realize my shirt is having a problem? I have to sit them down and talk to them. I have to safeguard them because anything affects me, my children, is going to affect me. Anything affect my wife is going to affect me. So what do I do? Don't care? No. Listen, we have to understand what we're dealing with. It don't make sense with this me, something. It's not going to work. And all we're going to end up with, we soon have to go see Sister participants to tell us where to go and who we go talk to and all of these things. We have to safeguard our mind and our mental health. God bless you.
So we're just going to take the last point now from Lady Jordan, and then right after Lady Jordan, Ruth, you can just go ahead and come in. But before Lady Jordan comes in, I'd just like to thank the panelists again for what you have done tonight and all the information that you would have shared. It was really insightful. And again, we are truly blessed. So go ahead, Lady Jordan, and after which, Ruth, you can just go ahead and take over.
Bless the Lord one more time, Lady Darkin. I just want to encourage all the single person. Do not waste your singleness. Utilize it. Utilize your freedom. Serve, study the scriptures, which may be more profitable to you. And I just want to say, as Ella Darkin was talking, sometimes people do things out of desperation, and sometimes single person can do things out of desperation. You don't want to, go into a relationship because of desperation. And as they said, sometimes the partner that some person end up with is not really of God because out of desperation, you know, they they married. You don't want to do things out of desperation or because you're lonely, But enjoy your singleness, until God really bless you with with the partner and a right partner, because it's important that the partner that you're gonna marry is from God. And you know, I just want to say avoid certain things, set boundaries. You know, you don't want to guard your heart. Maintain purity, maintain your sexual purity and set emotional boundary when you are dating. I just want to say because sometimes, and this is Christian, I'm not talking about unsafe person. I know for person, sometimes, you allow yourself to be used and you don't let down your standard, don't let down your guard as a single woman. And the person, and this is a Christian brothers, it's not a here, so it's not a story, something that I know of. And I just want to encourage the single person. And he said, well, he was talking to this sister, and eventually they get involved in sexual relationship. And you know what he said? Him said, I don't want her because if I get her so easy, she'll go to somebody else. And you know what? She thought that he would marry her. He did not marry her. He went and married to somebody else. So just in saying this to say that single sisters, maintain your purity. Don't let down your standard or your God because sometimes when these brothers come and use you, you left with a scar. And sometimes these things trigger off person, them go into a mental state, never recover. Because when you think that brother was gonna marry to, he went and find somebody else and married to them. This is my, you know, few words encouraging the singles.
Well said,
I'm
Lady
mar-
Jordan. I think we should get one session with you're the lead. You have been excellent. I also want to add that the young men, you spoke about the young ladies being very careful, and that is so true. I also want to encourage the young men not to take advantage of their positions being plenteous to go to being in scarcity, sorry, scarcity and going and using the young ladies as well. And because people keep secrets in church who they're dating, they take it at an advantage and move from person to person. So, also be mindful of that, gentlemen. There is no stripe that you're earning by being a gallus. Right? I think, the fact that women are short and nowadays women are look man anyway, so you don't get any big ups for having more than one woman either. Right? So, be very careful as well. And if nobody else is seeing you, gotta go see your animal get beaten for your wrongdoings. Right?